What happens when defiance collides with discipline at one of the world's most guarded landmarks? At Buckingham Palace, a confrontation unfolds between Amanda, a determined woman armed with pepper spray, and an unflinching royal guard. The crowd holds its breath as tension reaches its peak. Will centuries of tradition withstand this challenge? Stay with us to witness every dramatic moment. And don't forget to like, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories that test the limits of human character. On a warm summer afternoon, Buckingham Palace glimmered under the sun as crowds gathered to witness the changing of the guard. It was a ritual soaked in history, discipline, and tradition, one that drew tourists from all over the world. Among the crowd that day was Amanda Blake, a woman of 48, impeccably dressed in a white blazer, designer handbag in tow, and platinum blonde hair cut into a sharp bob. Amanda was not just another tourist. She was a regional customer service director, a woman accustomed to command, accustomed to being heard. But what unfolded that afternoon became a story of more than a confrontation. It became a lesson in patience, humility, and the quiet strength that so often goes unseen. Amanda arrived at Buckingham Palace with the swagger of someone used to moving through life with purpose. Her expensive heels clicked sharply against the cobblestones, a rhythmic declaration of self-importance. The crowds parted slightly as she moved past young families, couples, and elderly visitors. Her eyes scanned the scene, unimpressed by the iconic setting, the regal air, or the historic atmosphere. For Amanda, this was not a place of awe. It was merely another setting to be conquered, another backdrop for her constant assertion of control. The murmuring tourists, the playful children, the whispering older couples, all became obstacles in her path as she pushed forward, determined to claim the best vantage point. As she reached the front, her gaze settled on a figure standing perfectly still, a royal guard. Dressed in a scarlet tunic, polished brass buttons, and a towering bearskin hat, the guard was the embodiment of British discipline and tradition. But to Amanda, he was something else entirely, a challenge. At first, Amanda's irritation simmered quietly. She fidgeted with her phone, glanced at her watch, and scowled at those around her. But then her gaze snapped back to the guard. She became convinced, perhaps through projection or entitlement, that the guard was staring at her. With growing annoyance, she stepped closer, crossing the invisible boundary most tourists instinctively respected. "Excuse me?" she called out, her voice sharp, cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "Are you staring at me? Don't pretend you can't hear me." The guard, as protocol dictated, remained motionless. His gaze remained fixed ahead, his posture unyielding, his expression unreadable. The nearby tourists exchanged glances. Parents gently pulled children closer, sensing tension in the air. An elderly couple whispered quietly, and a retired soldier in the crowd tensed, his eyes narrowing as he watched. Amanda's voice grew louder. "I said, are you ignoring me? That's harassment. I work in customer service. I know what's appropriate and what's not." Her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she stepped into the guard's line of sight. For those watching, especially the older visitors, this clash was more than uncomfortable. It was a collision between entitlement and restraint, between noise and quiet dignity. Amanda's indignation reached its boiling point. She pulled her designer handbag close and began rummaging inside, her movements sharp and aggressive. When she pulled out a small canister of pepper spray, the atmosphere changed instantly. The crowd fell into hushed alarm. Mothers clutched their children. Tourists took careful steps back. The elderly man in the veteran's cap moved forward instinctively, his military experience alerting him to the shift from verbal confrontation to potential violence. Amanda raised the canister with a trembling hand, her voice a tense whisper. "Let's see if you ignore this." With a sharp hiss, the pepper spray shot forward in a burning mist, aimed directly at the guard's face. What happened next astonished everyone. The guard did not move. He did not flinch. He did not shield his face or step back. The chemical spray hit him full on, dripping down his face and staining his uniform, but his eyes, red and burning, remained fixed forward. His posture remained impeccable. For the older onlookers, this was a moment of profound revelation. They had lived through years of seeing the world change, of watching values shift, of witnessing the rise of instant gratification and short tempers. Yet here stood a man whose strength lay not in retaliation, but in control. His silence was not weakness. It was mastery. The crowd watched in a mixture of awe and horror. Amanda's triumphant expression wavered. The canister slipped from her fingers, hitting the cobblestones with a sharp clatter. She stumbled back a step, confusion clouding her face. The veteran approached, a bottle of water and a white handkerchief in hand. "Hold still, son," he murmured, his voice heavy with both authority and tenderness. With a steady hand, he rinsed the guard's face, blotting away the worst of the chemical assault. The crowd, which had backed away moments earlier, now edged forward. Their expressions were no longer filled with curiosity or judgment. They were filled with respect. Turning to Amanda, the veteran's voice hardened. "Madam, you've just assaulted a member of Her Majesty's Armed Forces. Do you even understand what you've done?" Amanda's shoulders sagged. Her carefully curated appearance, designer blazer, monogrammed handbag, flawless makeup, suddenly seemed like brittle armor, cracking under the weight of what she had unleashed. Amanda sank onto a nearby bench, her head in her hands. Tears streaked down her face, smudging her mascara, leaving dark trails along her cheeks. Her shoulders heaved as quiet sobs broke free. Gone was the confident, forceful executive. In her place sat a woman unraveling in public, her sense of power slipping through her fingers. Police officers arrived, their expressions calm but resolute. Amanda rose shakily to her feet, offering no resistance, as they gently guided her away. The crowd watched in near silence, save for the soft murmurs of parents explaining to their children and tourists whispering in their native tongues. For the older witnesses in the square, this moment crystallized a universal truth. Arrogance has a way of collapsing under its own weight, and real power often reveals itself not through dominance, but through discipline. The guard, after a few moments, resumed his post. His uniform bore the marks of the incident, the damp streaks on his tunic, the redness in his eyes. But his stance was as steady as ever. The sun cast a golden glow over the scene, transforming the marks on his uniform into symbols of resilience. The veteran stepped back, offering a crisp salute, a gesture of respect across generations. The guard acknowledged it with a subtle shift of his eyes, a silent bond shared between those who understood the demands of service. The crowd slowly dispersed, some lingering to take quiet photos, others walking away deep in thought. The lesson lingered in the air, felt by young and old alike. The story of that day at Buckingham Palace became more than just a viral moment or a headline. It became a parable about modern life, a story retold over dinner tables, shared in cafes, and circulated on social media, not just for its drama, but for its deeper meaning. For older generations, particularly, it served as a gentle but firm reminder that real strength is found in patience, that dignity outlasts bluster, and that service still matters in a world often obsessed with self. They understood something that many younger people might still be learning, that power is not always loud. Sometimes it stands in silence, in a red tunic, under the hot sun, eyes forward, unwavering. As Amanda was led away, her heels clicking softly against the cobblestones, the guard remained a figure of quiet heroism. His example stretched beyond the boundaries of that courtyard, beyond the eyes of the tourists who witnessed it firsthand. For many watching from afar, whether in India, the UK, or anywhere else, the story resonated. It spoke to grandparents who remembered their own service, to parents trying to teach their children about respect, and to young people navigating a world increasingly focused on image over substance. The message was simple, but profound. The greatest strength often lies in restraint, and the deepest power resides not in domination, but in self-control. That afternoon at Buckingham Palace will live on as more than just a confrontation gone viral. It will endure as a lesson about what it means to carry oneself with honor, to uphold one's duty in the face of provocation, and to stand for something larger than oneself. Amanda Blake's story is not just one of public humiliation. It's a cautionary tale about the limits of entitlement, the consequences of unchecked ego, and the profound impact of true discipline. And for the royal guard who stood unmoved, it was another day of service, but one that reminded the world why some uniforms are not just costumes, and why some acts of courage come without applause. For the rest of us, especially those who have seen the arc of many years, it was a moment of recognition that in a fast-changing world, the timeless virtues of patience, humility, and quiet strength still matter, and may in fact matter now more than ever.